A routine job on a lunar base, but everyone else is dead. You're a software engineer sent to fix what should have been a simple problem, but something has gone horribly wrong. Alone on the moon and hunted by an invisible enemy, you must repair the system that can get you home and uncover what happened to the people who never made it out. Join me as we explore Routine, the survival horror game from Lunar Software, a first person experience packed with complex puzzles, environmental storytelling, and nerve shredding jump scares. I'm the Baker Gaming, and welcome to my What's the Deal With series, where I play through games for the very first time and break down both their story and their mechanics. Some games are new and some are old, but the rule is simple. I must never have played them before. No nostalgia, no bias. Just fresh eyes and a healthy dose of curiosity. This week, it's time for Routine. The story isn't handed to us. We piece it together ourselves through console logs, tape recordings, and the traces left behind by those who came before. Because of that, what you're about to see is my interpretation. I'll walk you through the story as we uncover it, then share my full take at the end. Let me know in the comments whether you agree or whether you think I missed something. The game begins with an eclipse. Based on the uneven edges of the celestial body, I'm assuming that this is a solar eclipse, and it quickly becomes familiar, an unsettling image that appears throughout our story. Strangely, two bodies begin to block out the sun. But what are they? The Earth and the Moon? Are we drifting away from them? It's never explained, and that uncertainty sets the tone immediately. A voice speaks. We started this journey together, chasing the unknown, seeking what we could not see, but now we are lost. We wake up, gasping for air. We're locked inside a quarantine cell, and we've apparently been here for 7 days. Before we can leave, we need to print an ID card and find our helmet. There is a problem with the life support system. Nearby, we uncover an arrival administration form. It's undated and unsigned for a senior software engineer. Assess and debug ASN systems. Reporting to Kai Kayamara. That's it. No name, no date. We're left to assume that this form refers to us. As we step out of the room, the lights flicker and distant noises echo down the corridor. Yeah, something's very wrong here. We appear to be inside a Union Plaza vacation pod on the moon. There are signs and advertisements promising relaxation and enjoyment, an unsettling contrast given the situation we're in. This never was meant to be a place of fear. Not long after, we find our first major tool, the Cosmonaut Assistance Tool, thankfully abbreviated to CAT. It serves both as a utility and a makeshift weapon, and becomes essential throughout the game. We're introduced to it through an induction sequence, learning that it runs on batteries, which, conveniently enough, are scattered everywhere. The CAT allows us to interface with terminals, review objectives, access databases, and most importantly, save our progress. Using the database, we uncover the elevator pin, enter it, and finally gain access to the elevator which takes us down to the tram station. And just like that, we're on our way, deeper into whatever happened here. The tram station is in complete disarray. Every tram has been cancelled. We come across the automated security network console, and this immediately raises a red flag. Great, this has to be the ASN that we were sent to fix. But when we try to access it, our ID is rejected. We don't have the clearance or the required code. Nearby, we find a disturbing tape recording, and it quickly becomes clear that something has gone terribly wrong. Everyone has scattered. There's panic in the voice, fear barely held together. The recording pleads with us to shut down the ASN, But there's a catch. Only 2 people have the authority to do it. The first is John, the person leaving us this message, and the second is Kai, the head of security, the very person we're supposed to be reporting to. And suddenly, our routine job doesn't feel so routine at all. Using the cat, we disrupt the circuit breaker, keeping the security barrier closed, finally giving us access to a tram. We ride it straight to the mall because clearly there's nothing a bit of shopping can't fix. Also, I picked it because it was the first option. Inside, we meet a surprisingly cute little robot called the IC. It scuttles around on tiny legs, and it turns out to be a helpful service bot guiding us into the mall. At the reception desk, we find a security memo mentioning an upcoming meeting about a new UltraView module for the cat. It's an upgrade that would allow it to see fingerprints. This immediately stands out. If Kai is involved in ASN security, this meeting might be our best lead yet. The IC escorts us to a console, but to proceed, we need to enter our ID number. This is the first real puzzle of the game, and the solution is quite clever. We're told back in the quarantine cell to always keep our ID visible on our uniform. The answer is literally right in front of us, or rather, right below us. All we have to do is look down. Problem solved. Except it's not. The elevator refuses to work, and when we try restarting the console, it crashes entirely. So much for that plan. Fortunately, our little IC friend knows another route and leads us to the back way. The downside, it involves climbing a ladder, which means leaving our little friend behind in the reception. We're all alone again. We press on, crawling through a maintenance path that drops us into a store, only to find the exit sealed by a security shutter. Under a table, we discover a button. Pressing it calls for help, or at least, that's what I think it is. Instead, what arrives is a Type 5 robot, and this thing is anything but friendly. The robot cuts us free, but immediately turns hostile. Using the cat, we can overload its circuits and stun it temporarily, but it always recovers, and once it does, it hunts us down. If it catches us, that's it. Game over. Pushing forward, we locate the electronics store selling the UltraView module. The shutters are down, but a conveniently placed note tells us that they can be unlocked using John's console in the Mega Zone. When we reach the Mega Zone, the shutters are raised only just enough for us to crawl through. The robots can't follow, which makes this one of the few places that actually feels safe. John's office is of course locked. We trace the cables back to a circuit breaker, overload it, and force our way inside. This is where things start to come together. The security meeting about the UltraView took place here, and we missed it. Digging through John's console and reading his emails, we learned that a lunar quake occurred. John went out to investigate, and when he returned, he began suffering from headaches. A nearby tape recording fills us in on more of the picture. After returning from a lunar patrol, Type 5 units escorted John directly to the ASN. Something was wrong with them. Something had changed. We find a drawing on the floor, tendrils everywhere. What are these? And now we have to ask the question, is this what we were really sent to fix? Using John's console, we unlock the electronics store's shutters and make our way back inside, where we find the UltraView module. The shop shutters slam shut. We're forced into a tutorial puzzle, learning how the UltraView module works by highlighting a code on a console tucked away in the back of the store. Solving it allows us to raise the shutters and escape. We head across the way to the video store, only to find that the electronics are completely fried, gremlins in the system, if not literally. Nothing works the way it should. To open the main shutter, the system needs to be reset here first, then fully activated back in John's office. On the return trip to John's office, something new starts to happen. We struggle to breathe. We start coughing. Are we also getting sick? Back at the console, we open the main shutter and make a break for the elevator. This section is tense. Type 5 units can shut down the elevator remotely, trapping us inside and leaving us completely exposed. One mistake here and we're done. But we make it out, and when we return to the mall reception, we find the IC damaged. It was attacked. Poor little guy. And then we collapse. Whatever is happening is getting worse. We see the eclipse again. A voice echoes. Days pass, but nothing changes. It's like time forgot to take me with it. We wake up on the tram. No explanation. No memory of how we got here. And that might be the most unsettling part yet. We take the tram to the living quarters, and for the first time in a while, something actually works. We log in with our ID card, so at least we're officially registered to be here. At the end of the escalator, we find something disturbing. There's a destroyed Type 5 unit lying on the floor ahead. Its casing has been opened, its wiring ripped out and connected directly into a nearby screen. Somebody did this, but who? And more importantly, why? Nearby, we find another tape from John. Since returning from his lunar patrol, he's been seeing and hearing things. A doctor was concerned enough to file an official report with Union Plaza HQ. Whatever John experienced, it wasn't being taken lightly. On a nearby door, we find a maintenance note. The electronics in this area are all down. They desperately need an engineer. There's also a mention of concerns over cost, as if budgeting was more important than whatever is happening here. Beyond the door, we encounter two Type 5 units. One powers up, the other doesn't. It's deeply unsettling. You never know which ones are active and which ones are dead, and why. We carefully sneak past them and crawl through a vent, emerging inside a CCTV room. On one of the monitors, there's a handwritten note. There's a surprise in the reception for you. Using the camera controls, we pan over to the reception area and zoom in, finding a post-it note with a code written on it. Nice. Something tells me we're going to need that, and soon. We make it to the reception area and use the code to unlock the door. Inside, we find another recording, and this one finally says the quiet part out loud. The Type 5 units were killing people. Worse than that, they were bagging the bodies afterwards. The recording is frantic, desperate. Whoever left it insists the Type 5s must be stopped, but never explains how. We disable the fire control system in here. This gives us access to the laundrette. Inside, there's another inactive Type 5 unit and a whiteboard completely covered in notes and diagrams. The survivors were trying to piece everything together, just like we are. One detail stands out. John went missing after attempting to shut down the ASN. We uncover a classified report from John's lunar patrol. He found no evidence of an asteroid or a meteor strike. Instead, he discovered a body, one with tendrils growing out of it. On the moon? How is that even possible? The description matches the disturbing drawings we saw earlier in John's office. Whatever it is, it's spreading, and it didn't come from the space debris. More importantly, we find Kai's ID card. At last, we can do the job we were sent here to do, shut down the ASN. We leave the room, and right on cue, the supposedly inactive Type 5 springs to life. Of course it does. Good thing we were expecting it. I have played a horror game before. We sprint back to the tram station, barely staying ahead of the robot, and escape, riding the tram back towards the gateway and relative safety. Using Kai's ID card at the ASN console, combined with the UltraView module to trace the hidden code, we finally gain access. John's IC unit suddenly powers on. It's hardwired into the console. It knows John's gone, and it tells us what needs to be done. Overload the system to shut down the ASN. Reluctantly, we do exactly that. The door leading deeper into the ASN facility opens. Time to do the job we were sent here to do. Inside, we find a body and a final recording. The voice is weak, resigned. He says he tried. Then he whispered, "It's beautiful," before taking his last breaths. We step into a massive chamber. This must be the ASN. Lights flash violently, mechanical whirring from every direction. This whole place feels alive. At the first console, our shutdown commands are ignored. Error messages flood the screen. High memory usage, cascading warnings, endless pop-ups. We start closing them one by one, and it works. The shutdown responds. At the next console, we're told which nodes need to be lowered. As we do, the room reacts. Lights strove faster. The noises grow louder, more aggressive, as if the ASN is resisting us. To finish the process, we have to manually release the central node. We hit the switches. The restraints disengage, and then we overload it. The moment we succeed, everything goes dark. In our vision, we're standing on the moon. Ahead of us is a huge spherical structure. As we move closer, we catch a brief glimpse of something at the side, a small creature withering with tendrils, and suddenly the question becomes impossible to ignore. Are we seeing the same things that John saw? When we come to, we're inside a re-entry chamber. Were we really on the lunar surface, or was that something else entirely? We've moved forwards through a long, sterile blue corridor, which narrows into a tight engineering tunnel. This opens up into a vast room dominated by a massive screen, but it's completely black. Crawling through another maintenance tunnel, we flip a series of breakers. When we return, the screen is growing red. Our progress, though, is halted. To go any further, we need level 1 security interface access. What that actually means, we don't know yet. We press on. The next chamber stops us in our tracks. A circular room with a huge tree at its center. It's dead now, brittle, withered. But the question isn't, why did it die? It's, why was it ever here at all? As we move deeper, we find a recording from a Dr. Weber associated with something called Prism, and immediately things feel different, older, colder, less human. This isn't part of the facility we were exploring before we woke up in the re-entry chamber. This is somewhere else. For the first time, we're given a year. It's 1978. Dr. Weber explains that people have been entering something called the canal, and when they return, they're changed. They begin to mentally unravel. Weber knows that their own time will come eventually, but until then, they will continue to monitor the staff. On a nearby console, we find emails discussing samples being brought back from the canal, samples that show evidence of life. The diary entries are worse. They describe a humanoid creature, but larger than any human should be. How is this possible? We unlock the reception area and find more personal writings. One entry describes seeing something huge on the CAT screen while using an interface module. The author tries to dismiss this as a malfunction, but they don't sound convinced at all. Nearby, we find the module itself. It allows us to activate screens remotely, and more importantly, it provides level 1 security clearance. Finally, we can proceed. From the terminals, we learn that this section of the facility is called the ward. Digging deeper into the data, we uncover the truth about the tree. It was an apple tree, deliberately planted in the ward. For a while, it grew perfectly, but after the canal was entered, it began to die despite optimum soil conditions. Others experienced the same symptoms we did: collapsing, losing time, waking up somewhere else. People were drawn to the canal and to somewhere called the cave, and those who entered never returned. Patrols were eventually banned and less conducted in pairs, and yet there's no sign of anybody left. The remaining crew became convinced that the entity seen on the cat screens was real. Even worse, they believed it was watching them as they watched it. We push on. We managed to restart the servers. The large red screen, known as the archive, should work now. As we move on, we're knocked over. Was this the creature? Is it real? On the way back, we encounter the creature. It is exactly as described. It's terrifying. We can hear it moving around. We can hear it whimpering. Rebooting the red screen, we're met with another barrier. We need to record an echograph of the canal. Without level 3 clearance, we have to seek out the founder, who's in the annex. We learn about James, who's locked himself inside the vestibule using an elaborate code of his own design. He's the only person with level 2 clearance in the ward. And guess what level clearance we need to get into the annex? This means getting inside that vestibule just became our top priority, because whatever this place is, it's been waiting a very long time. On one of the consoles, we find a diary entry explaining that people have been trying and failing to decipher James's code, the one required to enter the vestibule. The solution is apparently stored inside a locker with the code hidden inside a diary entry. We track down this locker, and inside we find exactly what was promised, the cipher. But that's not all. There's also several small Polaroid photographs. To solve the code, we need to revisit the locations shown in these photos and search each area for a symbol. Once all of the symbols are collected, the code can finally be assembled. It's a clever idea. It's also a nightmare. Even knowing where these places are, actually finding the symbols is incredibly difficult, especially when we're being hunted by something the ward personnel referred to as Entity A. Every search feels like we're seconds away from being found. Eventually, we crack the code and enter the vestibule. Inside, we discover another recording from Dr. Weber. They've been researching ways to stop what they call the delusions caused by entering the canal. One of these procedures we've already experienced ourselves, the re-entry chamber. The most severe conditions are prevented by something called alignment, and of course, that's exactly what we have to do next. We undergo a series of optical and auditory alignment procedures, recalibrating ourselves piece by piece. Once completed, we're able to drain the basin. Crawling through it, we finally find James's ID card. For some reason that the game never really explains, we don't take this with us. Fortunately, I wrote the ID number down. Using that number on James's console upgrades our security clearance, but the information we uncover is deeply unsettling. Entries describe people continuing to leave for the canal, but now they must be cleansed first. We're never told what that means, but whatever it is, it doesn't sound good. With our new security clearance, finally exit the ward. Outside, the view of the moon is breathtaking. The earth hangs far off in the distance, small and impossibly comforting. I wish I were there, anywhere but here. The change in sound is also startling. Gone are the mechanical hums. Gone is the whimpering of the presence of Entity A. There's only silence and the sound of our own breathing. We reach another bunker. As a brief aside, the environment here is stark and lifeless, but visually stunning. The water effects in particular give the illusion of movement and vitality in a place that is otherwise cold and dead. It creates the unsettling sense that this world is still active, even if nothing living should be here. Our objective in this bunker is to create a decontamination fluid which will allow us to access the annex. Inside, we find another body, once again with tendrils growing from it. Nearby, there's a recording. Whoever left it claims that they came further than anyone expected. They sound resigned, at peace with what's about to happen. Further diary entries reveal something new. There was a second creature. This one died after eating an apple from the tree inside the ward. William, the founder, performed a dissection and determined the creature was a female. He refers to it as Entity B. We prepare the decontamination fluid and enter the dissection room. We find William, or what remains of him. Tendrils again grow from his body. I swear I can hear them moving. We find that William believed that when he was alone, he could hear Entity B speaking to him. And during the dissection, he describes her eyes as lonely, as sad. And that raises a terrifying question. Is this what's wrong with Entity A? Is it alone now? Was Entity B its mate? Using William's ID code, we open a hatch and descend into a vast labyrinth of tunnels. We drain the fluid above us, then realize that the water is flooding our tunnels. We run. We nearly reach the ladder to safety before collapsing. We see a vision, a small version of the entity. Is it a child? We wake up again and escape through the overflow into William's office. Using the console, we upgrade the cat to level 3 clearance. We can now return to the ward. One final task remains. We must align the prongs before performing the echograph. The task itself is simple. Avoiding Entity A is not. With our upgraded clearance, we can access the echograph room and perform the scan. We have to move to a room called the ripening and induction room, where we're expected to inject amniotic brine. This is almost like we're trying to induce labour. Is this entity pregnant? Or is this sign of a fetus growing externally, like we saw in our vision earlier? The base begins to shake violently. We have to get out. A long tunnel leads us back towards the archive, but before we reach it, Entity A grabs us. But this time it doesn't kill us. Instead, it throws us into an engineering tunnel. Debris collapses behind us, cutting off any return to the ward. Through gaps in the debris, we see Entity A watching footage of Entity B being discovered. It kneels, it mourns. With nowhere else to go, we enter the blue, eerie corridor. This is the canal. We open the door and step inside a cave system. This must be it. We experience an out-of-body vision, seeing ourselves floating in space. When we awake, everything is bathed in blue light. Bodies litter the ground, tendrils growing from them. There's only one path forward. We approach the sack at the center. A flash. Entity A is projected over a vision of ourselves. Then two figures in spacesuits reaching for one another. Together, we begin anew. Through me, you endure. Through you, I endure. Those are the final words we hear. Dates flash by. 1999, then 2025. A series of heavily redacted reports appear. 2025, summary, recovered data from original Prism canal expedition. The Prism expedition officially ended in 1979. In 1999, a Union Plaza employee, John Cooper, reported the discovery of redacted, but we know exactly how that ended. A software engineer was dispatched to correct the ASN and entered the ward. The report goes on to state that upon entry of the 2025 crew, the area was found to be filled with a pollen-like substance. The final transmission contained a single image, a cave filled with vines. And that's where the game leaves us. We're left to interpret what all of it means. Are we the software engineer sent in 1999 or part of the 2025 recovery crew? My interpretation is that we're the 1999 engineer, and the events within Union Plaza occur while we're held in quarantine. The 2025 mission exists solely to retrieve data from the original Prism expedition. If we were part of the 2025 mission, why quarantine in Union Plaza? This interpretation is also consistent with the undated arrival administration form we found in our quarantine room. This leads to the more disturbing possibility that this cycle repeats, and that's why the game is called routine. As for the entities themselves, are they truly alien? My feeling is that these are what humans eventually become from their evolution within the sacs, with the pollen there driving them, controlling them to go into the cave. Was the lunar quake in 1999 responsible for releasing the spores into the Union Plaza, restarting the cycle? It's interesting to think that the entities appear to be both inconsistent and dependent on the presence of humans. Entity B died while eating an apple, human food, but we didn't enter the cave system until we had injected the amniotic fluid. Does that mean that these entities need us to begin conception? Do they grow from us? Do they grow from humans? It's also worth considering that Earth life is incompatible with the presence of the entities. When Entity B died, spilling its fluid into the soil, this seemed to kill the apple tree. My feeling is that the entities didn't exist in this form until humans first made it to the moon. Before that time, there was just the pollen, the plants that we see in our visions. This pollen drove us into the caves, at which point we changed, we formed into these entities, and that is what populates the moon until this day. Of course, this is only my interpretation. Let me know what you think. Overall, I really enjoyed Routine. The storytelling, restricted entirely to found documents and recordings, both was interesting and refreshing. Crucially, none of this felt obscure or unfair. Key information was always available on mandatory consoles. This helped reinforce the overwhelming sense of loneliness that we felt on the moon, rather than frustration with not knowing what's going on. The lack of direct guidance was also another highlight. The game teaches us its mechanics through well signposted tutorial puzzles that encourage observation rather than hand-holding. None of the problems felt difficult, providing you slowed down and paid attention to your surroundings. My first death filled me with panic. The jump scare was excellent, but what really got me was the fear that I'd have to replay a huge section from my last save point. I was genuinely relieved to discover that respawn points exist. The rumoured permadeath system would have completely ruined the experience for me. I wouldn't have played this game. The only section I didn't enjoy was tracking down the symbols needed to access the vestibule. The puzzle itself was clever and satisfying, but locating those tiny symbols, especially while being hunted, was a bit too much for me personally. That said, the environmental design is fantastic. The visuals are stunning, and I love the maze-like layout of the ward in particular. The world feels deliberately disorientating in a way that perfectly supports the story. The narrative does start slowly, and I'll admit it took some time to fully engage with it, but once the game reached the ward, I was completely hooked. I played the rest in a single sitting. If any of this sounds interesting to you, I'd absolutely recommend giving Routine a go yourself. I tried to talk through the story without spoiling the puzzles or the jump scares too much. because those moments are best experienced firsthand. See you next time. Stay safe out there, adventurers.